If I can't do it, homie, it can't be done. What up, though? Back from the bye, which means I'm also back with another 5-piece for that head top. So let's get into it. Yeah. So back, feeling refreshed, partly because of the bye week and having a break from the perils of Chargers fandom. Super helpful. I mean, I'm also a Miami Hurricanes fan, and I'm not sure if you guys keep up with college football, but if you do, you probably know that Mario Cristobal is public enemy number one for all Canes fans. But that is not what you tuned in for. Another reason why, feeling kind of perky, is got my morning workout in. I'm up before the sun most mornings, 4:15ish with the rest of the breakfast club. My crew of maniacs in there getting it in at the butt crack of dawn. But I think that's important, man. Self-care I take very seriously, and I guess welcome to my TED Talk. But yo, if you don't have what you need, you're not filling up your tank, then what good are you to everyone else in your life? So make sure that you're taking care of you so that you can take care of the rest of the people that you care about and love. So want to grow on. But anyway, bat and lead off. And a lot of these names are important when you look at the prime time matchup coming up against the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football. We're going to rattle off a few names here and talk about why they're important. I mean, some of it's pretty obvious, but here we go anyway. Got to talk about it. Austin Ekeler. Why? Well, it's because the running game has been in the toilet since week 1. I think some of that has to do with game planning. Not understanding which running backs fit what type of schemes. We keep talking about this ad nauseum, but the Chargers have this proclivity to roll out into, outside zone runs a bunch, especially with guys who aren't suited for it, particularly Joshua Kelly. And, even though Isaiah Spiller saw a heavier workload last week, still not utilizing him properly, I would say. You saw him contribute in the passing game, but he's much better suited for that outside zone stuff. He can also run inside, better vision. Y'all have heard me say this multiple times, so I don't need to keep beating the dead horse. But Ekeler coming back maybe settles the running game, which is going to be important for a couple of reasons. You got a banged up Justin Herbert with a fractured finger on his non-throwing hand, and if you don't have to lean on him as much to be Superman, then I think that is probably your best option. Let the dude go to work, but don't put it all on his shoulders, because, what ends up happening if it doesn't work out? And you got the criticism of he's not coming through when the team needs him, and you lose all context, because if you're getting the fact that the running game is supposed to be complementary, the Chargers are not a run-first team, but they should be able to game plan it up for specific opponents from week to week. So I would expect that some weeks you would lean more heavily on the running game than the pass, not just to help your quarterback out, but to create that balance so that teams don't necessarily know what to expect. So, Austin, welcome back, man. Hopefully we can get this running game back on track. You be the catalyst for it. I don't care. We just got to get it figured out. You got good old Derwin James coming back. And man, oh man, this is an interesting topic because we all know the importance of DJ. But we also know that he's best utilized as an in-the-box safety, and for some reason, the Chargers cannot figure that out. Now, some of that could be due to personnel, even though we were running through some of these same issues last year, and then you had Nas, so I don't quite get why it was such a big deal then. But I would say that watching that game 2 weeks ago with Dean Marlowe and Raheem Lane probably helps you in your assessment of guys that you can trust in the back end, which should allow Derwin to roam more freely within the box, where he belongs, where he's best suited. Not sure what's going to happen this week, but hopefully the Chargers took the bye, saw the performance of those two gentlemen, and figure out a way to incorporate them into the game plan this week. Probably means someone has to get skirted down to the practice squad in order to make room, but you got to do what you got to do. You don't want to play around with this Dallas team. Joey Bosa, I'm guessing, is back. When I'm recording this, he hadn't practiced really to this point. I mean, with the team, I think he was off to the side doing individual drills, maybe. Don't quite remember, but he wasn't a full participant in practice, if he practiced at all at this point in time. Do I think he'll be back? I sure hope so. I mean, you had the last game off. You were dealing with the toe issue in addition to the hamstring issue, so maybe they're just giving him additional rest. But would be really nice to have him around, putting that pressure on Dak in that 3-4 man rotation of your edge guys. So Joey, I guess welcome back, maybe. We'll see. But collectively, in this game as a whole, I think it's vital that all of these guys are participants, because you can't go into this contest, kind of half-stepping. I would say all hands on deck are necessary, because regardless as to how you feel about the Dallas Cowboys and that performance or that stinker that they put up against the 49ers, they're probably going to come in pissed off, and they're still very talented. I mean, it's certain areas, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And the Chargers are going to have to hold their own. I'll get to how I feel about how the game probably plays out later on. But for right now, these three guys, those particular three names, I think need to be on the field and available in order for the Chargers to play optimally on both sides of the ball. So let's see how that goes. And hopefully, we have our full cast of characters, or as many of them as possible. It's just in their best interest. Now, if you've been around long enough, here particularly, you know what it is with me. I pride myself on being objective and honest. And I'm not sure at what point that became the recipe for negativity and or hate. I don't subscribe to that. I'm not from that school. So you're never going to see me beating around the bush about things, and every opinion that I give is going to be based upon facts that I can provide you. Now, facts and feelings are very different things. And I've come to realize that several folks with regard to this team lean more on how they feel about things, which is fine. It's just that feelings are fleeting. Facts are facts. Feelings are not concrete. Facts are. Now, with new facts, you can update your opinion, which is fine. I actually suggest that you do that. But if you just, week to week, flying off the handle based on emotion, then it's a dangerous way to go about things in life in general. But, moving along into number 2, because I think this is very important. Y'all look like the truth to us. Who is this team right now through 4 games? Can you honestly say that you know? Follow-up question. How often have you actually been able to answer that question right away without really having to think about it? Weird, isn't it? With regard to who the Chargers are in the 2023 season through 4 games, the name that probably pops in your head, which is really no different than the last few years, is Justin Herbert. Because the team pretty much lives and dies on that arm. And now the legs, kind of, sort of. Interestingly enough, not having an identity is what I think keeps this team middling. They don't know who they are. They kind of cosplay in certain areas. Like, again, I go back to week 1 and it felt like they were going to lean more on that downhill running game, which is what they talked about, but they haven't really committed to it. And I mean, you can blame some of that on Eckler being out, but I don't think that really makes sense, because the guys that were there that became the de facto RB1 and RB2 are actually more suited for a downhill running game. So it's kind of more bizarro world stuff. But ultimately, this team goes as Justin Herbert does. And I understand it. He's the face of your franchise. Typically, that's kind of how you want things. But again, I think this team not having an identity for anything other than being led by Justin Herbert is, again, what's keeping them kind of in the middle of the road. Y'all know my stance on offense. Really how I feel about football in general. Old school football dude, I would love a run first offense, but that's not the NFL that we live in. But balance to me would be a huge improvement for this team overall and everything that they aspire to do. Do I think running the ball translates into wins automatically like some out there? No. I think having a strategy for your running game and how to implement it based on your personnel is important. And it's something that you should try to figure out how to make happen. Just because, for several reasons, actually, outside of helping your quarterback out and creating balance, you want to be a team that can salt games away on the ground. You want to be able to impose your will. You want to have strength in your offensive and defensive fronts. Speaking of offensively, specifically right now, where you can just cram the ball down other teams' throats. Now, is that going to be a recipe that works every week? Nah, but you should at least have, the ability to threaten it, make teams respect it. And going into this week, I think the running game is going to be very important again. Whether or not the Chargers are going to show a commitment to it, I don't know. But I would imagine that coming out of the bye week, there had to have been an emphasis on it. Now, the Dallas defensive front is no joke. So I don't expect the Chargers to just go in and push them around. What I would like to see, though, is to make the attempt. I mean, I get the 3 yards in a cloud of dust stuff, and it's not the sexiest brand of football, but that's not how you're going to win every football game. And when I say that, I'm speaking to just tossing it around the yard, because the more opportunity you take to drop Justin Herbert back, the more chances you take at there being an errant throw or two, or the pressure getting home to him more often than it should be, specifically against a team like the Dallas Cowboys. You know what's coming this week on the edge. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence. You sure you want to play around with that? Do you want to drop Herbert back, I don't know, high 30, 40 plus times? Is that what you want to do? I'm not necessarily sure that I think that's a recipe for success. I mean, if you got your starting running back coming back and two guys that, were able to sort of kind of get in the groove, I guess you can say more so Kelly. But now what you should be able to do is open up the playbook. And I feel like this could be one of those staple Kellen Moore games. It's a grudge match. Y'all see what's going on in Dallas right now and how Dak is looking. And, of course, that's all Kellen Moore's fault somehow. But this is a chance for Kellen to come in and have a signature OC performance. Get the running game involved. Allow the running game to open up the passing game, which helps not only Herbert, but your backs and essentially that number one wide receiver that you have. Sorry, the wide receiver that you drafted in the first round. He's not your number one wide receiver right now. Hell, he's not your two. And I guess he's like 3 in title. That's even in question when you consider Darius Davis. But all of these things are how you can help to incorporate your players to create a more balanced attack against a defense that is no joke. And if you've been paying attention, Dallas Cowboys win a lot of their games because of their defense. So you got to do what you got to do in order to try to neutralize those pass rushers. I don't expect them to go out there and completely stymie Lawrence and Micah Parsons. It's not realistic. What you should be able to do, though, is get them on their heels a little bit, run at those guys, and make them at least consider the running game instead of pinning their ears back to get after Herbert, because you don't want to see that all day. It can get ugly very quickly. And again, do you want your quarterback, who's already a little banged up, taking shots from those guys on the edge? Trey Pipkins, I might give him a little bit of help this week because everyone's kind of keying in on Micah Parsons. And you got, babyface bully over there on the left side that should be able to handle his business. Hopefully he's healthier this week, because last week or week prior was arguably his worst performance as a pro to this point. But Trey Pipkins, you don't want him one-on-one often with DeMarcus Lawrence, because, you saw the Max Crosby effect a couple of weeks ago. I'm not saying DeMarcus Lawrence is Max Crosby, but if he's not on the same tier, he's a tick lower, probably tier 2 and no lower than that. Do what you got to do to help your guys out, adjust to account for your weaknesses or player weaknesses so that you can play to your overall strengths and allow those dudes to perform to the best of their abilities. I feel like a broken record because I keep asking for this and it doesn't seem to quite be happening the way that I would like. But again, it falls back on having that lack of identity. But since I've talked about identity so much, it kind of flies in the face of making the adjustments from week to week, because knowing who you are is important, but also not beating your head against the wall in, being stubborn in what you're accustomed to doing, as opposed to making a game plan that fits the opponent for that week. So again, you have to have a balance. Do what you do, but mix it in with what works best against who you're playing that particular week. I think Kellen Moore can do that. On the defensive side of the ball, though, Brandon's going to have to get out of his own head. I think it's best if the defense just simplifies things. Once again, something we've all been requesting for the longest time. This week is as good as any to make sure that happens. It's all we can do at this point is ask. Sorry. If it doesn't go down this week, I don't know. It may never. Brandon may just be stuck in his ways, and you could be playing these games every single week where your backs are against the wall at the end of a game and you got to figure out how to make a play. Maybe it's just what we have to get used to as Chargers fans if we're not already. There may not be any change in the near future, but I'm good with, a 2-score win. Went by 9, 8, 10. I'd be just fine with that. Give me a break. We all need one. I'm not sure how I made it this far into the 5 without mentioning that young Deuce Vaughn is going to be making his professional appearance at SoFi Stadium, Cowboys rookie running back. And some of you out there may be wondering, Craig, why do you care about that? And for those of you who don't know, there's this running joke. It's like the 6 degrees of Craig, like who doesn't Craig know? Because I'm connected to a bunch of different professional athletes somewhere or another, whether it's like relation through family or close friends or even my eldest son, which is where the Deuce connection comes in. He and my son were high school teammates, really good buddies and friends to this day. So I have a vested interest in the kid's career and want him to succeed, just not on Monday night. So keep it to a minimum, kid. Do me a favor. But it's not really Deuce that I'm looking for to go off, which brings me to the number 3. Of course, we need the Chargers stars to show up. And you can look at a few different guys. You could say this is the Kellen Moore grudge game because he was a scapegoat in Dallas and they mutually agreed to part ways. And everybody liked to point the fingers as to why their offense had some struggles in clutch moments, particularly Dak Prescott. But as we can see, Dak throwing picks regardless of who's calling plays. So, yeah, never mind that. Or you could go to Quentin Johnston, who's from Temple, Texas, which is like almost 2 hours from Dallas. Actually, Temple's closer to me. It's about 45 minutes away. So him showing up on the national stage against, quote unquote, his hometown team, probably be a big deal. Or even Austin Eckler coming back and making his presence known again in the running game and showing the Chargers that they may want to consider, as I've mentioned before, potentially bringing him back because he's clearly a vital piece to the team and you can't just plug and play anybody to replace him. But those aren't the guys that I'm really focused on. I'm looking at you, Joey Bosa, Mr. Big Bear. Why is that? Because a lot of people have been asking questions, man. And it's getting to the point to where you have to wonder if they're warranted. Starting to develop a reputation as being someone who makes mistakes, boneheaded ones. Like, it's just a discipline thing in certain areas. But also kind of gotten the tag of being injury prone. I mean, Joey's played in less than 75% of his regular season games throughout his career, which is a little jarring. Some of that stuff, concussions, things of that nature is really nothing you can do anything about, but it doesn't help the fact that people are being critical of him anyway. I guess it just comes with the territory. He's got to have a big night. You got all of the requisite pieces around you in that front, particularly opposite you in the edge game, that can allow you to do some damage because they can't double everyone. And Thule has been a breath of fresh air for this defense, and he has aided Joey tremendously. I think Joey's got 3 sacks. So in the 3 games that he's appeared in, he has 3 sacks total. And I know at least 2 of them can be attributed to Thule. With that being said, we just need you to show up, man. Be healthy and continue to prove to be a dominant edge rusher, the one that you came into the league known as, and you with good reason held that title as one of the top edge rushers in the NFL. We just need a little bit more of that from you consistently. And with guys like Khalil Mack, an elder statesman, showing up every week, still playing at a pretty high level. Even if he isn't getting consistent sacks every week, he's still a menace in the run game, setting a solid edge and still getting pressures, and of course setting records as of 2 weeks ago. We need some consistency from Joey, and the only way that he can be consistent is if he's actually on the field. So I'm looking for you, my man, to be one of the guys that stand out on Monday night, because whether you believe it or not, even though Dak is mistake prone, if you give him time, he can carve you up. And it's going to be a big deal getting to him and not allowing him to get comfortable and in a rhythm. And Joey, you're going to play a huge part in that. So that's right, man. We need you to put on. Looking forward to it. Coming off of a bye, you would think that the team's probably very relaxed, ready to roll, man. And everyone's just looking forward to getting another game under their belt and getting back on the field. But here's the reality. The Chargers need this game. I know some people aren't thinking of it that way, because if they were to lose, they'd be 2-3, and it's not the end of the world. But think about these next 2 games. Cowboys, Chiefs. Do you really want to go into Arrowhead 2-3? Because another close game is probably on the horizon. All the Chargers and Chiefs do. Well, really, it's all the Chargers do in general, but specifically against the Chiefs. They give them a good game up until the end, and then something happens, and you know the story, how things generally go with the Chiefs. You could potentially come out of that 2-4. It's a different ball game after that. And then it's an uphill climb. We're accustomed to that as Chargers fans also. It's not something we really want to see. So that's why I've entitled this one, number 4. Too heavy. Reason being, other than what I just laid out for you, you're coming into a situation against a team that's kind of sort of in flux. You've been paying attention to the national media, which I don't necessarily take my cues from, but I listen to what's going on because football junkie comes with the territory. But right now, this Cowboys offense is not only stuck in the mud. Their number 1 wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, is about a game away from being downright disgruntled. Jerry Jones is doing Jerry Jones things, and that's never good for anyone. And you've got guys like their special team spark plug and actually former teammate and big brother of sorts to Darius Davis, Kevontae Turpin, who I believe is questionable with an ankle injury. They've got a couple of other major injuries, like at the second level. You got Leighton Vander Esch out now. And then I think Deron Bland, who was actually the replacement, who stepped in for Trevon Diggs, who went down for the year. He had a situation last game, too. I haven't checked the injury report to see if he's on it for this week or not. But there are potential issues at both the second and third level. So much so at the second level that they are looking at moving their star player on defense to outside linebacker, Micah Parsons, which, depends on how you want to look at it, is helpful, but also hurtful because of the different maneuvering they can do with them and nightmares they can create in the pass rush with that game plan. But, this is a team that, we've already mentioned it, just came off of a 32-point throttling, and they've got all of these issues. So you would think they're susceptible to taking a loss. You would want to pounce on this opportunity because this may be the weakest that the Cowboys are all year. Now, they have their other issues on offense, particularly with their quarterback, who I'm not going to bag on anymore because I've given Dak enough energy. Most of it's been negative, but a lot of it's well-deserved. They are not a whole team right now. And in certain ways, they're reeling and they're trying to figure it out before they get deeper into the season and then completely fall apart. This is your chance to really take advantage of them, get a win, and have yourself seem like you're more of a competitor in the league, specifically in the AFC. If you can take down the Dallas Cowboys, that's saying a lot. Granted, I know that they lost to the Arizona Cardinals. We've already been down that road, and we saw what just happened to them with the 49ers, but you can't make that comparison because ain't nobody the Niners in the league right now. So take that for what it's worth. But, there is pressure associated with this game. And, again, not trying to look too far ahead, but just peeking a little bit around the corner. Going in Arrowhead 3-2 as opposed to the inverse of that is much more appealing. And go in Arrowhead and play potentially a close game and maybe get over the hump this time around. And things look a lot brighter for you. And you're taken a lot more seriously around the league. And then suddenly, you might be able to make a couple of moves here and there, which I still don't believe they'll do. We're talking about trade deadline stuff, and I just think the Chargers are kind of set in their ways. And if they're actually 4-2, they probably ain't making any moves whatsoever because it just, it justifies them in sitting still. They'll feel like they have everything they need right now. And I know a lot of people out there wondering, well, if you're kind of on the brink of things, then it makes sense to try to go after somebody. But based on where they stand right now with the cap situation going into next year, and just the fact that I don't believe they'll be willing to offer up draft picks because of the fact that the team is probably going to look a bit different next year with some of those top names that you come to know and love. Those picks are going to mean that much more to the Chargers. They're going to be at a premium because they are going to have to lean on young talent to keep this thing going. You're not going to be able to just keep pulling out veterans that you're going to have to pay and pay big money to. And I understand that the Chargers do like their cap gymnastics, and Ed McGuire is a genius in that way. But at some point, those bills come due. And eventually, you just got to do it the old school way. Draft, develop, and build from within. But this week, they should be feeling the pressure because it's there. Whether or not anyone on the outside wants to admit to it or internally, they need to get this done for sure. Come on, man. We all know this is a massive game for the Chargers. We've already talked about how they don't really have an identity outside of Justin Herbert, but a win in this game would go a long way in proving otherwise. I mean, if they can win outside of it being on the arm of Justin Herbert, that is. This is going to take a team effort. You've got a squad that's coming in here probably pretty pissed off, as we've mentioned before. I mean, you got curb stomped by the Niners, completely embarrassed, and I'm just imagining that you can't wait to get back on the field to get that taste out of your mouth. So the Chargers are going to have to do a couple of things. And I'm going to speak to this first and foremost because nothing worse than a person who complains about stuff and doesn't offer up potential solutions to problems, right? So with that being said, number 5 is what I'm going to give you. Some. I got them keys in the crib. You wouldn't find them if you had the keys to the crib. Because it doesn't necessarily mean that the Chargers are going to take what I'm saying. I mean, first of all, they can't hear me. Unless they listen to this. And they might, never know who you're reaching. But it's just what I would like to see them do. At least make points of emphasis and do their best to either avoid it or push it forward to ensure that they have a better chance of success in this matchup. First thing I got to do is withstand the surge. You don't get the crap kicked out of you like that and then just show up lollygagging the next week. Not if you have any pride about you. And the Cowboys fancy themselves one of the top teams in the NFL. I mean, losing to the Cardinals probably didn't help that very much. So, but I mean, there's no shame in getting like the crap kicked out of you by the 49ers. It's going to happen to many more teams this year. I mean, clearly the 49ers look like the best team in the NFL right now. So I don't think you should feel too badly about that. Now, the fact that it looks like you quit before the game was over, yeah, that ain't great. They got some dogs on the Dallas Cowboys offense and defense, but particularly on the defensive side of the ball. let's just be honest. This is a top 5 and top 10. They're both ranked in there, offensive and defensive line. So the trenches are going to be on fire, and it's not necessarily the Chargers' strong suit. The interior of the offensive line is still coming together. It's not exactly where I felt like they would be by now, but also Corey Linsley's not available, and so that throws things a bit out of whack, and you got 2 young guards on the inside still acclimating and all that good stuff. But hopefully these 2 weeks that you've had to kind of focus on this game plan will give you a bit of a leg up there. And also, I forget what the number is, like, of teams that play the 49ers, what their win-loss record is. No, sorry, take that back. I forget how many of them it's been. I forget how long the streak has been. But for quite some time, teams that play the 49ers lose the next game. So regardless as to whether they beat the Niners or not, I would assume it's because they come out battered and bruised, because that's what the Niners do. They play a physical brand of football. It takes its toll. So you got the Chargers coming back after a bye and an extra day because they play on Monday. You got the Dallas Cowboys that could potentially still be licking their wounds, and they're missing a few guys. But outside of those things, something else that's super important is you cannot be the cure to what ails them. But the Chargers are kind of famous for that. Yeah, got a porous run game? Come on down to SoFi. Chargers will fix that right up for you for one afternoon. You'll be feeling like gold. Any running back can look like a Hall of Famer. Not sure why that's the case. It is what it is. Can't get your passing game off of the ground? Greatest show on turf. Immediately. Just give it about 5 minutes. You'll be cooking in no time. Dog, I don't know why that's the case, but that can't happen this week. Mainly because, again, I'm going to keep stressing this. You've had 2 weeks to get ready for this. So, guys like Dak Prescott, who are known to give the ball away, you can't have him come in and suddenly turn into Tom Brady on you. Or the fact that Brandon Cooks has seemed almost non-existent in this offense. Brandon freaking Cooks. Brandon Cooks, who goes for over 1,000 yards receiving probably since he came out of the womb. The Chargers will fix that right up. Don't know why it's the case. It's just how it is. But you can't allow that to happen this week. I know that there are a bunch of you guys out there that in your mind you've already come to the conclusion that the Chargers are going to find a way to lose this game. And I don't blame you. I understand. But I'm not going to go the jaded route. I'm going to continue to lean on the fact that these cats have had 2 weeks to prepare. I've said that multiple times throughout this pod. Probably more than I can remember. And you're probably tired of hearing me have said it as many times as I have. But the truth of the matter, I find it very difficult to believe that with that extra time and the fact that you have a former coach from their team just from last year in your building, that you will come out there on Monday night and lay an egg. Please don't do it, because the last thing I want to do is come back here next week and have to cook everybody. Brandon Staley's already on the clock. I will name names and have no problem going all the way in on you. Don't be that person. I don't want to have to cherry pick anyone. I don't want to do it. So just go out there, handle your business. I mean, I would appreciate if it wasn't a close game, but that's all the Chargers really know how to do. So I'm not going to deceive myself, give myself any false hope there. Probably will be a close game. With that said, I'm not going to give a score prediction now. Actually, I'll take that back. You may have already heard my score prediction on the Lightning Roundtable. So with that being said, I can say it safely now because you've heard it already. Let's go Chargers against that defense. Oh boy. 27-24. Do I feel confident in it? But again, 2 weeks. So that's it for me, man. Y'all will see us back here for after hours on Monday night. And hopefully I'm in a good mood. Pray for me. Y'all take it easy until the next one, man. Be easy, be cool. Hope you got your heart meds and everything in order. You had an additional week to get it done. So if you didn't, that's on you. Defibrillators, all that. Keep them close. Because as Chargers fans, we know probably going to need them. again, appreciate y'all. But no matter what, I will be back with another 5-piece for that head top, whether I am pissed off or not, because that is what I have sworn myself to do, and I am a man of my word. So catch y'all later. Gone.